last summer my lawn was so dead and brown looking that dropping a lit match on it would have set the whole garden alight. And within a few weeks I had it greener than any other lawn on my street. And you can do exactly the same thing to yours. It has nothing to do with returfing, and it costs less than a single professional lawn treatment. You will need wetting agent granules, a proper scarifier, and a secret feed built for a stressed lawn. Do it the way I show you today, and by the following month, your neighbors will be asking you for your lawn secrets. You can stop looking up returfing quotes, and you don't need to spend hundreds ripping it all out. And once your lawn's recovering, there's one more step I'll show you later in this video, the same finishing trick golf course groundskeepers have used for decades, that takes your lawn from healthy green to that deep emerald shade you see on TV. My name is Lenny, and I'm going to walk you through the exact method step by step, so you've got a plan ready to run this weekend before you even think about calling a turfing company. Alright, so most people see a lawn covered in that pale, crunchy straw color and assume the grass itself has died. That is a completely natural conclusion to reach, and it is also almost always wrong. The grass underneath a lawn like this is not dead, it is just locked out. There's a layer sitting right at the surface of the soil that stops water from ever reaching the roots. And until that layer is dealt with, it does not matter how much it rains or how much feed you put down, none of it is going anywhere useful. That layer is called dry patch, and it is the real reason your lawn looks like straw. To understand why this happens, you need to know about thatch. Thatch is the layer of old clippings, dead roots, and moss that sits just above the soil on every lawn. On a lawn that gets cut and scarified regularly, that layer stays thin and breaks down on its own. But on a lawn that's gone years without being scarified, especially a fescue and rye lawn like this one, that layer builds up year after year until it turns into a barrier instead of a buffer. Over time, the oils inside that thatch coat the surface of the soil, and once that coating is thick enough, it repels water instead of soaking it in, the same way rain rolls straight off a waxed car bonnet. So when it rains on a lawn like this, almost none of that water reaches the roots. It just runs across the surface and disappears down the drain, and the grass keeps baking exactly as it was before the rain fell. You can prove it yourself in under a minute with nothing more than a jug of water. Pour plain water onto a dry, straw-colored patch, and it runs straight off without soaking in anywhere. Now pour water mixed with a wetting agent onto the same spot, and it disappears into the soil almost instantly, no runoff at all. A wetting agent breaks down that waxy coating on contact and lets water straight through, and that one difference is what separates a lawn that recovers in weeks from one that stays brown all summer. Dig down a few inches and you'll see the same story underneath. The soil is bone dry, and the roots, which should be white and healthy, have turned brown and brittle from weeks with no water reaching them. Your lawn was never actually dead, it was just extremely dehydrated. The first step to fixing your lawn is to scarify the entire lawn and pull out as much of that dead, dry thatch as possible. Set the scarifier fairly aggressively, work close to the edges, and take your time so you do not miss patches. Keep the deflector or flap down on the machine as you go, so the dust and debris does not end up blown across your borders or flower beds. What comes up will look almost like dry compost, dark, crumbly, and completely lifeless. And there will be a lot more of it than you expect, which tells you exactly how long that thatch layer has been building up without ever being cleared. Because the material is so dry, rake it up by hand with a leaf rake rather than relying on a mower to collect it. Dry thatch clogs a mower bag almost instantly, and because it's so dry, it won't compact while it's waiting to be bagged up. So there's no rush to clear it immediately. Once that top layer is off, have a look underneath it. On a lawn that has gone a long time without scarifying, you will often find the ground beneath is already slightly damp in places, evidence that whatever rain has fallen has been gathering just under that dead layer without ever reaching the roots properly. And that's the first step for you. Everything that comes after it only works if it goes down in the right order and at the right time. And that's really what all of this comes down to, instead of guessing and hoping. So if you're serious about fixing your lawn, you're going to need the right equipment and a proper plan. And that's exactly why I wrote this book. Scan the QR code on the screen or click the link below to grab your copy. It's a simple step-by-step plan to a greener lawn with the weeds gone for good in just 30 days, and it takes you through what to buy, where to get it, and exactly when to put it down. Now, once the lawn is scarified and raked clear, get a wetting agent down straight away, and ideally use 2 forms of it at once. Apply a liquid wetting agent first because it starts breaking down the waxy coating on contact and gives you an instant effect. Follow it with a granular wetting agent, which works more slowly over the following weeks so that every bit of rain that falls from this point onward keeps soaking in properly instead of running straight off again. With the wetting agents down, it is time to feed the lawn, because a straw dry lawn like this typically has almost nothing left in the soil for the grass to use. Put down a general granular feed first. There is no reason to hold back here. A lawn this scorched and stressed cannot really be pushed any further backwards, so feeding it now can only help. After the granular feed, mix up a liquid feed to spray over the whole area and build it out of a few products, each doing a specific job rather than reaching for a single all-in-one bottle. Use a proper liquid lawn tonic as your base feed, and on a lawn this dry, apply it at double the normal label rate, since the severity of the damage justifies going in stronger than usual. Leave iron out of the mix at this stage. Iron is excellent for deepening color once a lawn is already healthy, but on a lawn this dry and stressed, it does nothing useful, and it can add to the stress the plant is already under rather than relieve it. Save it for later once the lawn is actually growing again and you are looking to take it from healthy green to something closer to a deep emerald color. Add a seaweed extract next because the roots need to regenerate from brown back to that healthy white color, and seaweed is one of the most effective things you can give a plant to kickstart root recovery. It works on the plant from the roots upward rather than forcing growth from the top down, which is exactly the direction you want recovery to come from on a lawn this damaged. Include a dedicated stress product as well, because a lawn baked out like this one is under real physiological pressure, and something aimed specifically at reducing that stress gives it a far better chance of bouncing back quickly rather than stalling halfway through recovery. A lawn under this much stress will often produce a buildup of ethylene inside the plant itself, which is essentially the plant's own signal that it is struggling, and a stress product helps counteract that rather than leaving the plant fighting itself as well as the dry weather. Go in heavier than usual with the wetting agent inside this liquid mix too. On a healthy lawn, you would stick close to the guideline rate, but on something this far gone, using more does no harm at all, because the only risk is using slightly more product than strictly necessary, while underdoing it puts you straight back to square one with water running off again. Finally, add a product designed to purge excess ethylene from the plant, since a stressed lawn produces a large amount of it, and clearing it out gives the grass a cleaner run at putting its energy into new growth rather than into simply surviving. There's no need to be precise to the last drop with any of these last few additions. Getting the proportions roughly right matters far more than getting them exact, and none of these products will cause harm if you are slightly generous with them given the state this lawn is in. None of these products are complicated or expensive. Most of them sit on the shelf of any decent lawn care supplier, and the whole liquid mix for a lawn this size costs a small fraction of what a single visit from a turfing company would set you back. The part that actually matters is using them together in the right order, so each one is doing its job at the right moment rather than fighting against each other. The last piece of the method is timing, and this is where most people go wrong even when they have bought all the right products. Time this entire application around a stretch of rain rather than around your own schedule. Every product you have just put down needs water to carry it through the soil and down to the roots, and rain does that far more evenly and far more effectively than standing there with a hose for 20 minutes ever will. If you can get a Scarify, a wetting agent, and a feed down in the day or two before rain is forecast, you will get a dramatically better result for a fraction of the effort of trying to water it all in yourself. Here is what to expect once that rain arrives, because it is tempting to look for an overnight transformation, and that is simply not how this works. For the first few days, you will not see much change above the surface at all, and that is completely normal. All the real activity at this stage is happening underground, where the wetting agent is finally letting water reach roots that have been cut off from it for weeks, and where the feed is starting to be taken up as the soil itself comes back to life. The rain is doing the heavy lifting during this stage, carrying everything down through that newly opened soil and giving the roots their first proper drink in what has probably been months. After about a week, the first hints of color start to return, and it is worth knowing where to look for them because they do not appear evenly across the whole lawn at once. The first signs usually show up low, down at the base of each blade, rather than at the tip, since that is the part of the plant closest to where the roots are pulling moisture and nutrients back up from the soil. It can look slightly patchy to begin with, greener in some areas than others, and that is simply down to small differences in how much thatch had built up in each spot and how quickly the water managed to get through. From there, if the rain keeps coming and the lawn keeps getting fed, the color deepens week by week rather than all at once, and the density fills back in as the plant sends out new growth from the crown rather than from anything applied on top of it. That distinction matters. This is the original plant recovering, not turf laid over the top, and that is exactly why this method works even on a lawn that looks as far gone as straw. By around the 2-week mark, most lawns treated this way show a clear, uniform shift in color across the whole area rather than isolated green patches. And by 3 to 4 weeks, the density underfoot starts to feel noticeably thicker as new shoots fill in the gaps left by everything that was scarified out. The work is happening, it is simply happening below the surface first. Now let me tell you why almost nobody hears about any of this before they end up on the phone to a turfing company. A full returf on an average sized garden costs several £100 once you account for stripping out the old lawn, disposing of it, buying new turf, and having it laid and watered in properly, and it leaves you with weeks of unusable garden while the new turf knits down and establishes. Compare that to an afternoon with a hired scarifier, a bottle of wetting agent, and a bag of feed, and the difference in both cost and time is not even close. Yet dry patch is not some rare or unusual condition. It happens on lawns like this every single year, especially on the fesk and rye mixes found in most gardens across the country, because those grasses build up thatch quickly if they are not scarified on a regular basis. Nobody is deliberately hiding this from homeowners. It simply is not the kind of thing that gets mentioned when a lawn looks this dramatic, because tearing it all out and starting fresh feels like the safe, obvious answer, even when it is the expensive one and not the necessary one. A returf will always look like it works, because you are literally replacing the problem with brand new grass, but it does nothing to address why the original lawn ended up like this in the first place. And without a change in maintenance, a new lawn on the same soil can end up right back in the same condition in a few years' time. That is really the difference between treating the actual cause and simply covering it over. Fix and dry patch properly means the lawn you already have, roots and all, get the chance to recover on its own terms. And once it has recovered, keeping on top of scarifying and wetting agent applications going forward is what stops it ever getting this far gone again. A returf, by contrast, solves the appearance of the problem for a season or two without ever touching the reason it happened, which is exactly why so many replaced lawns end up looking tired again within a few years if nothing else changes. There are 3 habits that either cause this problem in the first place or stop a lawn recovering even after it has been treated properly, and it is worth breaking all 3 before you spend another season fighting a lawn that keeps going the same way every summer. The first is assuming that brown automatically means dead. It is a completely natural assumption, because a lawn covered in straw-colored grass genuinely does look finished from a distance. But that assumption leads a huge number of people to rip out lawns that would have come back perfectly well with nothing more than the right water and feed, spending far more money and losing far more time than they ever needed to. Before you write a lawn off completely, dig a small hole and look at what is actually happening underneath the surface, rather than judging it purely on color from a distance. A brown lawn with brittle brown roots underneath is a lawn that is struggling. A brown lawn with soft, pliable roots that simply have not had water reach them is a lawn that is about to recover, and you will only know the difference by looking. The second habit is watering little and often during a dry spell. It feels like the responsible thing to do, giving the lawn a short burst most evenings, but 5 or 10 minutes with a sprinkler barely gets past the surface of a lawn in this condition. It does not stand a chance of breaking through a waxy dry patch layer, so most of that water evaporates before it ever reaches the roots, and you end up doing the work every single evening without getting any of the benefit from it. If anything, that habit can make the surface crust even harder over time, because the ground gets just enough moisture to seal over again before it dries out once more. If you are going to water a straw dry lawn at all before treating it properly, a single deep soak once a week does far more good than a light sprinkle every evening, though even that will only get you so far until the dry patch itself has been dealt with. The third habit is skipping scarifying altogether, usually because it looks brutal and feels like overkill on a lawn that is already struggling. But even if you get feed and water down without scarifying first, that dead thatch layer traps everything you apply before it ever reaches the soil underneath. That means you can do every other step correctly, spend money on good products, and still see no real improvement, simply because none of it got past that top layer to where it was actually needed. Scarifying always looks like the most damaging step in the whole process, and it is also the one step that makes every other step actually work. Now, remember that finishing trick I mentioned at the start, the one that takes your lawn from healthy green to that deep emerald shade you see on golf courses and on television. This is where it comes in, and it is worth doing properly rather than rushing it, because get the timing wrong and you will waste the effect, or worse, stress a lawn that has only just recovered. The trick is iron, specifically a sequestered or chelated iron feed, the same kind greenkeepers use to get that deep, almost blue-green color on a putting green without pushing excessive top growth. Iron does not feed the plant the way nitrogen does, and it will not make the grass grow faster or thicker. What it does is darken the chlorophyll inside the blade itself, which is why the color shift can show up within a couple of days rather than weeks. But timing is everything here, and this is the part almost nobody tells you. Do not put iron down on a lawn that is still recovering from dry patch. I mentioned this earlier, but it is worth repeating because this is exactly where people get impatient and undo their own progress. A stressed lawn already has enough to deal with, and iron on top of that stress can do more harm than good. Wait until the lawn has fully recovered, with even color across the whole area, decent density underfoot, and new growth clearly established, and only then bring iron into the routine. Once you're at that point, apply a liquid iron feed in the early evening or on an overcast day, never in direct sun, since iron can scorch grass blades if it is applied and then baked by strong sunlight before it has had a chance to be absorbed. Water it in lightly if there is no rain forecast within the next day, just enough to help it settle into the leaf without rinsing it straight off. Stick close to the label rate here because this is not like the wetting agent or the stress products earlier, where going a bit heavier on a damaged lawn does no harm. Iron is one of the few products in this whole method where more is not better, and overdoing it can leave you with dark, almost black patches or scorched blade tips instead of that even emerald tone you're after. Give it a couple of days to develop fully and do not judge the color on day one. It builds gradually as the chlorophyll darkens, and the difference between a lawn that is simply healthy and one that has had this final step is genuinely obvious once it is done. That same deep, dense green you see on golf greens and in turf adverts, rather than the lighter, slightly yellow-green of an ordinary healthy lawn. One more thing worth knowing, this is not something you do once and forget. Greenkeepers repeat a light iron feed every few weeks through the growing season to hold that color, rather than applying it once and expecting it to last. If you want your lawn to keep that emerald shade rather than fading back to ordinary green after a few weeks, fold a light iron feed into your maintenance routine once recovery is complete, alongside the scarifying and wetting agent applications that stop dry patch coming back in the first place. If you want the full plan mapped out for your specific grass and your specific region, that's what the book is for. It takes everything I've covered here and turns it into a 30-day blueprint you can just follow, with the exact products, the timing, and the order they go down in. The link is in the description, or scan the QR code on the screen. Now I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts. What are you struggling with your lawn right now? Is it the weeds or is it bare patches? Let me know because the answer may change what video I make next. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.